Hey guys, so how can burning a pile of chips and a pile of charcoal teach us about controlling hunger to help us reach our health and fitness goals? Well, let me demonstrate it to you. Here it goes.
Now, before I show you what happens with this weird experiment, I want to first talk to you about the truth about hunger.
Hi, my name is Charlie Kim with Ketolytic, and I help people stop yo-yo dieting and constantly battling hunger that may be keeping them from reaching their health and fitness goals. And if you stick with me to the end, I'm going to even show you the experiment of this video, the results of this video, I think, which will be interesting to see. But first, let's start by identifying the problems. So people ask me all the time, hey, Charlie, why am I constantly feeling hungry? I'm doing everything that my nutritionist told me to do, everything I read online, everything those fitness and health nutrition influencers told me to do, but I'm constantly hungry and I can't seem to stop snacking. Like no matter how hard I try, no matter how much willpower I have that day, it just feels impossible to stop snacking, right? And how do I prevent getting hungry when I'm doing the yo-yoing and trying to restrict calories like they say you need to do? How do I keep myself from like snacking and getting hungry all the time, right? So there's really three big reasons why many people constantly struggle with this issue of constant hunger and snacking, and especially if they're trying to create a caloric deficit, trying to, eat less calories and such, right? So here's the first main big reason why. The big reason I want to start off with is you may be consuming too much carbs, okay? Now, you've heard so many people say carbs are good for you. And then you have another group of people, especially in the low carb keto community or paleo, they say, especially more keto and low carb, they say carbs are the devil, right? And the thing is, quite personally, through my experimentation, I like the lower carb approach. Whether keto, it's not very specific to keto or very low carb. It's just my approach, I believe, is in low carb. And here's the scientific reasons why based on my research. So if any of you guys heard of what's called the glycemic index, or they call it short for GI, glycemic index, basically what the glycemic index does is it just measures how quickly a macronutrient, a nutrient, burns in the body, is used up by the body as a usable source of calorie to be burned, right? So long story short, when you stack up dietary fats, protein, and carbs are the highest glycemic foods, okay? They score the highest in the glycemic index, which means they are rapidly digested and burned by the body, okay? Versus, for example, protein is kind of like on the opposite spectrum. Protein is so nutrient dense that it's really hard to burn, create burnable calories in the body with protein, especially if they're more protein and fiber rich type of foods, right? And also you got dietary fats. They also take a long time to burn. They're a more slow burn. So the problem with consuming too much carbs is that if you're consuming too much carbs, you are spiking your insulin level, meaning you're spiking your blood sugar, okay? So if for those of you that aren't too familiar, all carbs eventually turn into sugar in the body. That's how the body registers it. It becomes a sugar molecule. So whether you're consuming direct sugar or fructose, or you're eating a big piece of bread or a muffin or whatever, let's just say big piece of bread, that is, that may be a more complex type carb. However, they also burn rapidly, okay? A lot faster than protein and fats. So your body quickly digests them. So what follows when you have too much sugar and just overall even too much complex carbs is you get what's called a sugar spike, right? Ever give like a soda or a Coke sugar-filled soda to a little kid and wonder why they get hyped up, right? They get that sugar rush. That's called a sugar spike, a blood sugar spike. But what happens followed by a blood sugar spike is a rapid decline. And I call that the sugar crash, okay? So your blood sugar also crashes, meaning a lot of people may feel hypoglycemic, meaning like they feel like, oh man, I feel like I need to eat, or I'm gonna feel dizzy, or I'm gonna get agitated, right? Any of you guys feel like that before? When you feel hungry and you're like, if I don't get something in my body right now, I'm gonna be the most like pissed off person, not the most pleasant person to be around, right? And the longer it goes, the more agitated you get, right? And more hypoglycemic you feel. Well, especially, if you ate just like an hour and a half or 2 hours prior to this event, you're not starving, right? You're not in starvation mode. It's just your brain playing tricks on you and it's giving you the feeling of feeling hypoglycemic and that you're starving, when in reality you're not. What you're actually experiencing is the blood sugar crash. Okay, first you have the temporary rushing feeling of excitement and energy and whatever, getting pumped up because you got that sugar rush, that sugar spike. But then what follows that is the rapid sugar crash, and that's what you're experiencing, and that's why you feel hungry a lot more times than others. You're feeling hungry because you're living a cycle of constant sugar spikes and sugar crashes. So that's one. Okay. The other one is constant snacking. Okay. Constant snacking, it becomes habitual, and it's really hard to know what true hunger is versus false hunger, I call, if you're constantly snacking, right? And now this also relates back to the reason number one that I just went over earlier. Okay. If you're eating too much of the wrong macronutrients, then your hunger signals are going to be all over the place. It's going to be whacked, right? So you have to consume the right macronutrients and eat less of certain macronutrients like carbohydrates and especially sugar and fructose, right? So snacking, constantly snacking, that's one of the big reasons why people just naturally overconsume calories, and that's called a calorie surplus, right? So if you're trying to hit your health and fitness goals and you're snacking all day, maybe 3 times a day, 5, 6, 7 times a day, some people just every hour or more, okay? That's how you overconsume calories that you don't even think about, that you don't even remember, that you typically don't even account for. When someone asks you, well, what have you been eating? You're frustrated, you go to a friend, you're like, I don't know why I'm not having any success. Well, what have you been eating? I only eat like 3 meals a day and just small meals. Okay. But you never mention, or not maybe on purpose, but you just forget the 5 or 7 other times that you snack typically throughout the day without even thinking about it. Right. So that's the other big reason why your hunger is not controlled, because it's a habit. Right. Okay. The last one, the third biggest reasons why people have so much challenge with controlling hunger is the convenience factor. Okay, we live today in a modern society, where we have just too much availability of convenient foods, right? That means that depending on where you live, but for most of you, if you live in a pretty populated area, if you do a Google Map search within just 3 miles of where you live, you probably have more than enough abundance you probably have more than enough places where you could grab convenient foods. That means restaurants, grocery stores, anywhere where you could grab something quick, or that can be prepared for you quickly, that's already kind of pre-made, highly processed, okay? That's readily available. So anytime you feel hungry, you can easily just go down the street and get whatever you want, quick and easy and on the go. So typically the problem is most convenient foods are filled with sugar, just made of just overall tons of carbs, and also including fats. When you combine carbs and dietary fats, that's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so convenience of foods, especially for those of you who are parents with children, okay, you guys have it the worst. So this is very important that you hear this. So when you have especially young ones running around and you're giving them all these snacks like goldfish or whatever, fruit roll-ups, whatever there is these days, right? So if you're feeding your kids these type of stuff, and if you're honest with yourself, you got to ask yourself, are you also snacking on their snacks, right? And if you are, it's not the end of the world, but it's hard not to, as a parent, if you are around those all the time, especially if you're feeding your children those types of foods as snacks or as a meal. Sometimes I've seen. Okay, so what I recommend is simply change what they snack on. Trust me, even if they kick and moan and scream and cry, they will adapt. We're human beings. We'll get over it and we'll adapt. And there's other great tasting, healthier alternatives for kids that they could snack on if they get hungry throughout the day. And obviously they can get away with more carbohydrates because they're young, they're growing body, their hormones act differently, their metabolism acts differently. Okay, they're still in the growth mode, and plus they're a lot more active than most of us hard working parents, right? So change the environment, right? Be aware of the convenient foods. Just in that category, it's so hard to avoid consuming lots of things with sugar and just overall lots of carbs. Even if they're complex carbs, they all turn into sugar molecules in the body. So just remember that. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this short video training. And if so, please give us some hearts, some shares, and comment below what you thought of this video training. And also, before you go, I have something that I prepared for you. I want to give you this free guide that I prepared for you. And it's called My Top 10 Battle-Tested Ways to Help Control Hunger. Okay? It's a free, downloadable, instant access guide. And all you got to do is click the link or the button below, and it will take you to a page where you put in just simply your email, basically where I should send this free guide to, and then you'll get instant access to it. So hope you enjoyed this training, and I'll see you next time.